I spent 3 hours on Reddit at 2 in the morning reading the same forum thread over and over. The title was simple enough: Face Culture Manipulation Tactics, Recognizing When It's Real versus Weaponized. I'd found it after Googling Thai girlfriend losing face every argument in a moment of desperate exhaustion. 147 comments. I read every single one. Then I read them again. By the time the sun came up in Chiang Mai, I'd realized I'd been systematically manipulated for over a year using a cultural concept I'd spent countless sleepless nights trying to understand. The total cost of my cultural sensitivity? 41,800 Australian dollars. The cost of finally understanding I'd been played? Everything I thought I knew about respect, culture, and the relationship I'd restructured my entire life around. My name is Oliver Chen Morrison, and I moved to Chiang Mai 18 months before I met Busaba. I'd left Melbourne after selling my software consultancy, looking for something quieter, something more meaningful than another sprint cycle or client deadline. At 59, I'd started exploring Buddhism seriously, reading everything I could about Thai culture, attending meditation retreats in the mountains outside the city. My Chinese-Australian heritage meant I already had some cultural framework for concepts like collective identity and family obligation, but Thailand felt different, more spiritual somehow. I wasn't one of those digital nomads who showed up knowing nothing and caring less. I'd learned basic Thai phrases, studied the Y protocol obsessively, removed my shoes before even approaching a doorway. I wanted to do this right. I wanted to be one of the respectful ones. I met Busaba at a coffee shop near Nimman, where I worked most mornings. She was 28, spoke excellent English, and had studied marketing at Chiang Mai University. She approached me, actually, commenting on the book I was reading about Thai Buddhist philosophy. We talked for 2 hours that first morning. She seemed impressed by my interest in genuine cultural understanding, told me most foreigners never bothered to learn anything real about Thailand. That validation meant more to me than it probably should have. Within 3 weeks, we were dating. Within 6 weeks, I'd heard my first lecture about losing face. It started small, as these things always do. We'd planned to meet her university friends for dinner at a casual restaurant I'd suggested, one of those local places where pad thai costs 60 baht and everyone sat on plastic chairs. She called me 2 hours before we were supposed to meet, her voice tight with stress. She told me we needed to change the restaurant. When I asked why, she explained that the place I'd chosen would make her lose face in front of her friends. She said in Thai culture, when a man takes his girlfriend to meet friends, the restaurant choice reflects on her. A cheap restaurant meant I didn't value her. Her friends would think she'd chosen poorly, that her boyfriend didn't respect her enough to take her somewhere nice. She suggested a restaurant she knew. I looked it up. Dinner for 6 people would cost around 4,000 baht instead of 800. I felt uncomfortable, but I also felt ignorant. Who was I to argue about Thai culture with someone who'd lived it her entire life? I changed the reservation. She seemed relieved, told me I was different from other foreign men, that I understood the importance of face. I felt proud of that assessment. I'd done the culturally appropriate thing. That became the pattern. Anytime I questioned a choice, expressed hesitation about an expense, or suggested an alternative, Busaba would explain how my option would cause her to lose face. Her face could be lost in remarkably specific situations. Shopping at the regular market instead of the upscale one near Nimman. Loss of face if her sister saw us there. Taking a regular taxi instead of calling a private car. Loss of face if we encountered anyone she knew. Meeting at a modest coffee shop. Loss of face because her coworkers might drive past. I found myself constantly calculating the face preservation cost of every interaction, every decision, every public appearance. Within 4 months, I'd shifted my entire lifestyle upward economically to prevent Busaba from experiencing this apparently devastating cultural catastrophe. The amounts started adding up in ways I didn't fully track at first. A nice dinner here, a better taxi there, designer items because Thai women of educated background cannot carry fake bag, will lose face. I sent her money for hair salon visits because she explained that in Thai culture, A woman's appearance reflects on her boyfriend's ability to provide. Letting her hair look less than perfect meant I wasn't taking care of her properly, which meant she'd lose face with family and friends who would wonder why her foreign boyfriend couldn't afford proper maintenance. The phrase, "cannot lose face," appeared in our conversations multiple times daily. I began researching face culture obsessively, reading anthropological papers late into the night, trying to understand the nuances. I learned about saving face, giving face, having face, the complex social navigation that governed Asian societies. The concept made sense to me academically. My Chinese heritage gave me some framework for understanding collectivist honor dynamics, but the specific applications Busaba described often felt oddly expensive. 6 months into the relationship, my monthly spending on face preservation activities had reached 35,000 baht, roughly 1,200 Australian dollars. I'd rationalized every expense. The designer handbag wasn't materialism, it was cultural necessity. The expensive restaurants weren't showing off, they were respecting the face-based social system. The constant financial support wasn't dependency, it was my role in the cultural framework. I'd explained this to friends back in Melbourne who questioned the costs. I'd actually become somewhat defensive about it, positioning myself as someone who genuinely understood Thai culture while they were judging through Western individualist lenses. That pride, that investment in being culturally enlightened, made me incredibly resistant to doubt. Admitting I might be wrong meant admitting I didn't understand as much as I'd claimed, which felt more painful than the financial expenditure. The face-losing scenarios became increasingly elaborate. Busaba needed a newer iPhone because hers was 2 models old, and colleagues at her marketing job might notice, which would make her lose face as the girlfriend of a foreign consultant who presumably earned good money. She needed expensive skincare products from a particular Bangkok boutique because using drugstore products would be noticed by friends who would judge her relationship quality based on her skin appearance, causing face loss. She needed to contribute expensive wine to a family gathering because showing up with cheap wine would make her parents lose face in front of relatives who would wonder why their daughter's boyfriend was stingy. Every single request came wrapped in detailed face culture explanations. I'd spend hours after each request Googling variations of Thai face culture gift obligations, or Thai face culture appearance requirements, or Thai face culture financial expectations, trying to verify if what she described matched standard practice. The results were always ambiguous enough that I couldn't definitively say she was wrong. 7 months in, we had our first major argument. I'd questioned why she needed 10,000 baht for a dress for her cousin's wedding when she had several beautiful dresses already. Her response was volcanic. She told me I was making her lose face by even asking the question that in Thai culture a girlfriend doesn't wear the same dress to multiple family events because everyone remembers and judges, and my questioning meant I didn't understand Thai culture at all despite claiming to respect it. She said this wasn't about the money. It was about whether I valued her enough to prevent face loss. She told me Thai men would never question this kind of request because they understood cultural obligations. She suggested that maybe I wasn't ready for a Thai girlfriend if I was going to treat every cultural norm as negotiable. She cried. I apologized. I sent the money. I felt guilty for causing her distress by being culturally insensitive. That argument established a pattern that would repeat with variations for the next 8 months. Any hesitation on my part was reframed as a failure to understand face culture. Any question about costs was positioned as making her lose face through the very act of questioning. The cultural concept became a weapon that shut down discussion. If I persisted in asking for clarification, I wasn't questioning the expense. I was questioning her entire cultural identity, her expertise in her own society, her fundamental understanding of social dynamics I could never truly comprehend as a Westerner. The accusation of cultural insensitivity was more painful than spending the money. I'd moved to Thailand specifically to be respectful, to learn, to integrate thoughtfully. Being told I was failing at that felt like failing at the entire purpose of my presence in the country. By month 10, I was sending Busaba 40,000 baht monthly for what she termed face maintenance costs. This included her rent, because living in a modest apartment would make her lose face with friends who knew she dated a foreign consultant, her transportation costs, because taking public transport would signal financial inadequacy and cause face loss, her social expenses because splitting bills with friends would indicate her boyfriend didn't support her properly, and her appearance maintenance, because anything less than salon quality presentation would reflect poorly on our relationship. None of this felt optional. She'd explain each expense with reference to specific Thai cultural expectations about face, status, and relationship dynamics. When I felt uncomfortable about the amounts, I'd push down the discomfort by reminding myself that cultural differences meant different financial frameworks, and my Western individualist perspective probably just couldn't fully grasp collectivist honor economics. I'd actually started correcting other expats about face culture. At a digital nomad meetup, an American guy complained about his girlfriend's spending habits, saying she used culture as an excuse for constant expenses. I defended the concept, explained that face culture was real and meaningful, that supporting a Thai partner financially was part of the social contract in relationships here, that he was being culturally insensitive by reducing genuine tradition to manipulation. The irony of that conversation would haunt me later. I'd become so invested in my identity as someone who got it, who understood what other foreigners missed, that I'd positioned myself against skepticism. That pride made me the perfect target. The more I'd invested in being right about Thai culture, the harder it became to question whether I actually understood it at all. The breaking point came during an argument about a new handbag. Busaba wanted 15,000 baht for a specific designer bag because her close friend had just received one from her boyfriend, and showing up to their next gathering without a comparable bag would make Busaba lose face. The friend would think Busaba's relationship was inferior. People would talk, face would be lost. I'd been unusually stressed that week, dealing with a difficult client project, not sleeping well. I asked, with more frustration than I'd intended, whether every social interaction required expensive purchases to prevent face loss. I asked whether there was ever a situation where face culture didn't involve me spending money. Busaba's response was sharp. She told me I was being disrespectful of Thai culture. That face wasn't about money, it was about respect and value, and if I couldn't understand that, then maybe we had fundamental incompatibility. She said I was making her lose face by questioning these things, by treating cultural obligations as optional, by suggesting that her explanations weren't legitimate. She stopped responding to my messages for 2 days. When she finally contacted me again, she said she'd talked to her family about my disrespectful questioning, and they'd encouraged her to end the relationship unless I was willing to genuinely respect Thai culture. I apologized again. I sent the money for the handbag. But something had shifted. The exhaustion was overwhelming. That same week, I was having lunch with a Thai colleague from a client company, a guy named Somchai, who'd worked in Bangkok before moving north. We'd become friendly over several projects. I mentioned casually, without naming Busaba specifically, that I'd been learning about face culture and found it complex to navigate. I said something vague about trying to understand the financial obligations involved in preventing face loss for a partner. Somchai looked at me with genuine confusion. He asked what I meant by financial obligations. I explained, still generally, that I'd understood that Thai partners needed financial support for appearance, maintenance, social activities, lifestyle costs, because inadequate support caused face loss. Somchai's expression shifted to something between amusement and concern. He told me that wasn't how face culture worked. He said face was about dignity, respect, social grace, not about money. He explained that face could be lost through rudeness, public embarrassment, failure to show proper deference to elders, breaking social norms around politeness, but that the concept had nothing to do with requiring expensive purchases. He said some Thai women definitely used face language to justify financial requests, but that was personal preference dressed in cultural clothing, not actual tradition. He asked if I was being told I had to spend money to prevent face loss. I admitted I was. He shook his head and told me directly, "That's not Thai culture. That's just someone who wants money." I felt like I'd been hit. I'd spent 13 months believing every face culture explanation Busaba had provided. I'd restructured my entire understanding of relationship dynamics around this concept. I'd defended it to others. I'd shaped my identity as someone who understood Thai culture better than skeptical expats. And this Thai person was telling me I'd misunderstood fundamentally. I asked Somchai if he was sure, if maybe different regions or families had different face culture practices. He said face culture was consistent across Thailand in its basic meaning: social dignity and respect navigation. The specific manifestation might vary, but the core concept was about honor and shame and social interactions, not about financial support requirements. He suggested I talk to other Thai people about what I'd been told. He said if multiple Thai people told me face culture didn't work the way I'd understood it, I should probably reconsider my information source. That conversation triggered something. The exhaustion I'd been pushing down transformed into doubt I couldn't ignore anymore. That night I started searching. I Googled Thai, face culture, financial obligations, boyfriend. Nothing matched what Busaba had described. I found articles about Krengjai, the concept of considerate restraint in not imposing on others. I found discussions of saving face through politeness and avoiding public confrontation. I found explanations of giving face by showing respect to social superiors. Nowhere did I find anything suggesting face culture required continuous financial support from foreign partners to prevent face loss. I switched search terms. Thai girlfriend face culture, expensive. I found expat forum threads, multiple threads, dozens of threads. They all described variations of the same pattern. Thai partners invoking face culture to justify financial demands that had nothing to do with actual tradition. The Reddit thread I found at 2 a.m. was titled Face Culture Manipulation Tactics, Recognizing When It's Real versus Weaponized. The top comment was from a Thai woman explaining that she was tired of seeing her culture misrepresented by people using face as manipulation. She explained real face culture in detail: avoiding public confrontation, not embarrassing others socially, showing respect through politeness and deference, maintaining dignity in difficult situations. She said face could be lost through rudeness, aggression, public emotional displays, disrespecting elders, or socially inappropriate behavior. She said face had nothing to do with having expensive possessions or requiring financial support from partners. She said women who told foreign boyfriends that cheap restaurants or modest gifts would make them lose face were manipulating, not explaining culture. She had over 200 upvotes. The comments below were split between Thai people confirming her explanation and foreign men sharing stories nearly identical to mine. One commenter wrote, "Mine told me that in Thai culture, the girlfriend can't be seen wearing clothes more than twice or she loses face. Cost me thousands in wardrobe updates. My Thai coworker laughed when I mentioned it." Another, "I was told that Thai face culture required me to give her mother respect money monthly or the mother would lose face with neighbors. Paid for 8 months before a Thai friend told me that's not a thing." Another, "Every disagreement became about me making her lose face by questioning her. I couldn't discuss anything without it being a cultural offense." The pattern was exact. Different women, different cities, identical manipulation system. They'd found the perfect defense mechanism, cultural expertise that couldn't be questioned without seeming disrespectful. I read anthropology papers for the rest of that night. I found academic sources explaining face culture in Thailand, comparing it to Chinese mianzi and Japanese concept of face. Every legitimate source described face as social honor navigation, dignity preservation in interpersonal dynamics, concern with how one is perceived in social hierarchy. The financial component, when mentioned at all, related to gift-giving reciprocity in specific contexts like weddings or demonstrations of filial piety to elderly parents, not continuous financial support requirements in romantic relationships. I found a PhD dissertation on Thai face culture that explicitly addressed the Western partner misconception that face culture required expensive financial support, noting this was a commonly exploited misunderstanding of legitimate cultural concepts for material gain. I spent the next day in a coffee shop compiling evidence. I made a spreadsheet of every instance where Busaba had invoked face culture to justify an expense. The list reached 47 separate occasions over 13 months. I calculated the total spent on face prevention, 41,800 Australian dollars. I researched what actual Thai cultural obligations would have cost for similar situations. Sin Sod would have been relevant if we'd been engaged. Typical range for someone of Busaba's background and education level would be 150,000 to 300,000 baht. We weren't engaged, so zero cost. Monthly family support if we'd been married might reasonably be 5,000 to 10,000 baht depending on family need. We weren't married, and she'd never mentioned family need until framing everything as face-related, so questionable legitimacy. Gift expectations for holidays and family events. Reasonable cost. Maybe 20,000 baht annually for modest appropriate gifts, not continuous expensive purchases. Actual reasonable cultural costs for our relationship stage and her background. Approximately 100,000 baht maximum across 13 months, roughly 4,500 Australian dollars. I'd spent 9 times that amount. The cultural markup was 827%. I contacted 2 other Thai friends separately, people I knew through business contexts who had no connection to Busaba. I explained what I'd been told about face culture, asked if the explanations matched their understanding. Both responded with variations of surprise and denial. One told me face culture was about not embarrassing people publicly and showing appropriate respect, definitely not about financial requirements. The other said some women definitely exploited foreign partners' unfamiliarity with culture to get money, and what I described sounded exactly like that exploitation. I asked if maybe Chiang Mai had different face culture than Bangkok. Both said face culture was fundamentally consistent across Thailand. Regional variations existed in specific customs, but the basic concept of social dignity and respect was national. I asked if I was being culturally insensitive by questioning what Busaba had told me. Both said questioning claims that didn't match actual culture was appropriate, not insensitive. The evidence was overwhelming. I'd been systematically manipulated using my own desire for cultural sensitivity against me. Busaba had taken a real and meaningful Thai cultural concept and weaponized it into a financial extraction system that had nothing to do with genuine tradition. The brilliance of the manipulation was that every time I questioned it, I became the problem. I wasn't questioning her requests. I was questioning Thai culture itself. I wasn't concerned about money. I was being disrespectful of cultural values I couldn't possibly understand as a Westerner. She'd built a perfect defense mechanism where the very act of verification was framed as cultural offense. And I'd been so desperate to be one of the respectful foreigners, so invested in my identity as culturally educated, that I'd swallowed every explanation without sufficient verification from multiple sources. I spent 2 days deciding how to handle the confrontation. Part of me wanted to be wrong, wanted there to be some explanation where I'd misunderstood the research or the Thai sources had been incomplete. I'd invested so much in this relationship, in my understanding of culture, in my self-concept as someone who got it right. Admitting the manipulation meant admitting I'd been fooled despite all my research, despite my cultural background, despite my caution. The shame of that was almost worse than the financial loss. But the exhaustion was stronger than the shame. I couldn't sustain this anymore. I met Busaba at a coffee shop near her apartment. I brought my laptop with the spreadsheet. I told her I'd been researching face culture more deeply and had some questions. She immediately tensed, said she hoped I wasn't going to question Thai culture again like I had before. I told her I'd spoken with several Thai people about face culture and wanted to compare what they'd told me with what she'd explained. Her expression shifted, but she stayed composed. I asked her directly, "Does Thai face culture require continuous financial support from partners to prevent face loss?" She said yes. That's what she'd been telling me for over a year, that I clearly still didn't understand despite claiming to respect culture. I told her I'd spoken with Thai colleagues, read academic papers, and consulted cultural experts, and none of them described face culture the way she had. She said my sources didn't understand real face culture. that academics don't know actual practice, that every family has different traditions. I asked why her explanation of face culture was uniquely expensive compared to everyone else's understanding. She said I was making her lose face by questioning her expertise in her own culture in a public place. I showed her the spreadsheet. 47 instances of face culture financial requests, $41,800 total, compared to legitimate cultural obligations of approximately $4,500. She looked at the numbers, her face unreadable. I asked her to explain why actual Thai people told me face culture didn't work the way she'd described. She said they were probably from different social classes who didn't understand educated Thai women's cultural requirements. I told her I'd specifically asked about educated professional Thai women's face culture. She shifted tactics. She said maybe she'd exaggerated some things because she was scared I'd leave if she just asked for money directly, so she'd framed it as culture because she thought I'd respect that more. She said Thai women often had to be strategic with foreign men who had money but were stingy. She said I'd wanted to believe I understood Thai culture, so she'd given me a framework I'd accept. She said this wasn't manipulation, it was survival strategy for Thai women dealing with wealthy foreigners who didn't understand local economic realities. I asked if any of the face culture explanations had been real. She was quiet for a long moment, then said some of it was real, some was exaggerated, and some was just what she needed. She said she couldn't always separate culture from personal need because they overlapped. She said I had money, and she didn't, and that was its own kind of cultural difference I was trying to avoid acknowledging. She told me Western men came to Thailand with financial advantages and acted surprised when Thai women wanted access to that wealth. She said if I wanted a Thai girlfriend, I needed to accept economic imbalance. It was part of the package. She asked why I was so concerned about money if I supposedly cared about her. She said the fact that I'd made a spreadsheet proved I cared more about money than culture or relationship. She told me I was making her lose face right now by having this conversation in public where other customers might hear. I asked her to explain specific instances. The handbag that cost 15,000 baht because her friend had one and she'd lose face without equivalent. She said her friend did have that bag, and she did feel embarrassed by comparison. The expensive restaurants every time we saw friends. She said appearance mattered in her social circle. The monthly 40,000 baht for face maintenance? She said maintaining appropriate appearance for dating a foreign consultant required money. The iPhone upgrade? She said her colleagues noticed phones. Every justification was the same. The face concern was somewhat real, but the connection to massive spending was her interpretation of what face required. She'd taken genuine social anxiety about appearance and status, which exists in every culture, and blown it up into a systematic financial extraction, justified by cultural tradition that didn't actually mandate any of it. I asked why she'd never mentioned that other Thai people might have different understanding of face culture. She said she didn't think about what other people thought because she was explaining her family's culture, her experience, her understanding. I asked if she'd deliberately misrepresented Thai culture to get money. She said no. She'd shared her truth, and if my research found different information that didn't make her wrong, it just meant culture was more complex than I understood. She said she was disappointed I'd put so much energy into proving her wrong instead of trusting her knowledge of her own society. She said this conversation proved I'd never really respected Thai culture. I just wanted to feel good about myself for trying. She said I'd always treated her like a research subject instead of a person. She started crying. She said I was humiliating her, making her lose face by having this conversation in public, proving I never cared about her dignity despite all my claims about respecting face culture. The conversation lasted 90 minutes. It went in circles. She'd partially admit exaggeration, then claim cultural expertise I couldn't challenge, then accuse me of reducing everything to money when culture was about more than finances, then point out economic disparities between foreigners and locals that made some financial ask reasonable, regardless of culture, then return to insisting her understanding of face culture was valid, even if it differed from my research. She never fully admitted systematic manipulation. She never acknowledged that invoking face culture to justify every expense had been deliberate exploitation of my cultural ignorance. The closest she came was saying that maybe she'd emphasized cultural aspects that would resonate with my desire to be culturally appropriate. Even then, she framed it as navigating our cultural difference skillfully rather than manipulating me deliberately. I ended the relationship that afternoon. She told me I'd made her lose face by breaking up in public. I didn't respond to that. We had no shared property, no legal entanglements. I blocked her number after she sent 17 messages over 3 days, alternating between apologizing for, maybe exaggerating sometimes, insisting I'd misunderstood Thai culture, and telling me I was cruel for abandoning her after she'd been vulnerable enough to teach me about her culture. The messages stopped after I didn't respond. The week after ending it, I did something I'd avoided during the relationship. I attended a Thai cultural evening at a local community center. The event included presentations by Thai cultural educators about various traditions. Face culture came up during Q&A. I asked, carefully, about face culture's relationship to financial obligations in romantic relationships. The educator, a Thai woman in her 60s who taught cultural studies at a local university, explained face culture exactly as my research had described: social dignity, respect navigation, avoiding embarrassment, politeness protocols. Someone asked about supporting partners financially. She said Thai culture did include expectations about family support, children caring for aging parents, but those obligations were based on filial duty and reciprocal care, not on face culture. She said face could be lost through inappropriate behavior, disrespect, or social rule breaking, not through moderate lifestyle or modest spending. She said she'd encountered many foreign men who'd been told by Thai partners that face culture required expensive financial support, and this was categorically false. She said it was frustrating to see her culture weaponized for personal gain. After the presentation, I spoke with her privately. I explained my situation generally. She listened, then said bluntly that I'd been scammed using cultural manipulation. She said education level didn't prevent this exploitation, and in fact often sophisticated, educated women were better at framing manipulation in cultural terms. She said Busaba had almost certainly known she was distorting face culture but had counted on my insufficient cultural knowledge and desire for respectfulness to prevent proper verification. She said the exhaustion I described was common among foreign men in these situations because defending against accusations of cultural insensitivity was psychologically draining. She encouraged me to continue learning about Thai culture from legitimate sources and not let one person's manipulation sour me on genuine tradition. I spent the next month doing exactly that. I took a formal Thai culture course at the university. I read ethnographies and cultural studies texts. I had long conversations with Thai friends who patiently explained various cultural concepts accurately. What I learned was that Thai culture is rich, complex, meaningful, and worthy of respect. Face culture is real. The concept of maintaining dignity, showing respect, avoiding public confrontation, navigating social hierarchy gracefully, these are all genuine cultural values. The financial obligations Busaba had described were not. What she'd done was take real cultural concepts and pervert them into justifications for systematic financial extraction that had nothing to do with authentic tradition. The manipulation system was actually elegant in a disturbing way. By positioning herself as the cultural expert and me as the perpetual student, she'd created a dynamic where questioning her was questioning culture itself. By invoking face culture every time I hesitated about an expense, she'd made financial boundaries culturally offensive. By claiming that my questioning made her lose face, she'd turned verification into the very behavior that proved my cultural insensitivity. The system was self-reinforcing. The more I tried to be respectful by trusting her expertise, the more vulnerable I became to exploitation. And the more that exploitation succeeded, the more invested I became in believing my cultural understanding was genuine, making it harder to accept I'd been manipulated. She'd exploited my specific vulnerabilities perfectly: my desire for cultural integration, my mixed heritage that made me sensitive to Western arrogance, my tendency to overthink, my pride in being culturally educated. She couldn't have designed a better target. Looking back through the red flags I'd missed, The pattern was obvious once I understood what to look for. Face culture was only ever invoked when she wanted something from me, never when it might have imposed obligations on her. Real face culture includes reciprocal dignity and respect, but she never worried about making me lose face through unreasonable demands or public accusations. Face concerns only ever moved in one financial direction. The cultural explanations were always expensive, never cost-neutral or cost-saving. Real culture includes thrift, modesty, and avoiding ostentation, but her version of face culture required constant luxury consumption. She actively discouraged me from verifying her cultural claims with other Thai people, suggesting they wouldn't understand her family's specific traditions or that asking would be disrespectful. Real culture can withstand questioning and verification. Manipulated culture requires isolation from alternative information sources. Her emotional responses to questioning escalated dramatically, using tears, anger, and accusations of insensitivity to shut down discussion. Real cultural education welcomes questions. Manipulated cultural claims require emotional enforcement. Face culture became more expensive over time rather than stabilizing as I learned the system. Real cultural integration typically becomes easier with knowledge. Exploitative systems require escalation to maintain extraction. For anyone watching this who's in a similar situation or worried they might be, here's what I learned about distinguishing genuine cultural guidance from cultural manipulation. Real culture has multiple confirming sources. If your partner is the only person explaining a cultural requirement in that specific way, verify independently. Talk to multiple Thai people. Consult cultural educators. Read academic sources. Real Thai culture is well documented and consistently explained across legitimate sources. If your partner's explanation consistently differs from all other sources, that's exploitation, not regional variation. Real culture doesn't only flow financially in one direction. Authentic cultural obligations include reciprocity, mutual respect, bidirectional care. If culture is only ever invoked to justify you giving money or accommodating behavior but never to impose obligations on your partner toward you, that's manipulation. Real culture can be questioned without explosive emotional responses. Legitimate cultural educators welcome questions and verification. If asking about cultural claims triggers accusations of disrespect, that's because the claims can't withstand scrutiny. Real culture doesn't require isolation from other cultural perspectives. If your partner discourages you from learning Thai language, befriending other Thai people, or consulting cultural resources, that's because alternative information sources would expose manipulation. Real culture doesn't escalate costs over time without explanation. Authentic cultural obligations are relatively stable. If cultural requirements keep increasing financially without corresponding life changes that would justify increased obligation, that's systematic extraction, not tradition. Specifically regarding face culture, here's what you need to know to protect yourself from the manipulation I experienced. Face culture in Thailand is about social dignity, respect, politeness, and avoiding embarrassment. It governs interpersonal interactions, conflict avoidance, hierarchical respect, and public behavior. It does not require expensive purchases to prevent face loss. It does not mandate luxury lifestyle maintenance by partners. It does not justify continuous financial extraction. Face can be lost through rudeness, public confrontation, disrespect to elders, socially inappropriate behavior, or embarrassing others. It cannot be lost through wearing modest clothing, eating at normal restaurants, using standard transportation, or having a reasonable middle-class lifestyle. If your Thai partner tells you that failing to buy expensive items will make them lose face, they're manipulating, not explaining culture. If disagreements about money are framed as you making them lose face, that's weaponizing culture to prevent financial boundaries. If questioning expenses is characterized as cultural disrespect rather than normal relationship communication, that's exploitation. Before committing significant money to claimed cultural obligations, take these verification steps. First, research the specific claim independently using academic sources, cultural education sites, and multiple Thai perspectives. Google the cultural concept plus terms like actual tradition, legitimate practice, or real culture versus scam. Read forum threads from both Thai people and experienced expats. If consistent information contradicts your partner's explanation, trust the consensus. Second, consult Thai people outside your partner's control. Talk to Thai colleagues, friends from different contexts, cultural educators, or community members. Ask them directly about the cultural claim you've been told. If multiple unrelated Thai people say the practice doesn't exist or differs significantly from what you've been told, that's definitive evidence of manipulation. Third, learn basic Thai language and cultural concepts yourself. Don't rely solely on your partner for cultural translation. Independent knowledge makes manipulation much harder. Take formal culture classes, read books, watch Thai media with subtitles. Fourth, document cultural claims and track spending. Keep records of what you're told about culture and what it costs. If patterns emerge showing culture is only invoked for expenses, that's your evidence. Fifth, maintain connections with diverse social networks. Don't isolate yourself. Stay connected to both expat communities and Thai friends. Multiple perspectives prevent exploitation. If you're currently in a situation where cultural claims are being used to justify constant expenses, here's what to do. First, stop automatic compliance. When culture is invoked for a financial request, respond with, "I want to verify this first," rather than immediate agreement. Don't be shamed into instant compliance. Second, verify every major claim before spending. Google it, ask multiple Thai people, consult cultural resources, invest time in verification before investing money in compliance. Third, set clear financial boundaries. Decide what you're comfortable spending on legitimate cultural obligations and hold that line. Cultural respect doesn't require financial martyrdom. Fourth, watch for manipulation tactics when you question. If verification attempts trigger accusations of disrespect, cultural insensitivity, or relationship disloyalty, those responses indicate exploitation rather than education. Fifth, consult cultural experts if you're unsure. University Thai studies departments, cultural centers, and experienced cultural educators can definitively explain what's real versus fabricated. Sixth, be prepared for the relationship to end if you set boundaries. If the relationship only functions when you don't question cultural claims or limit spending, it's based on exploitation, not genuine partnership. The financial cost of my cultural manipulation was 41,800 Australian dollars. The psychological cost was higher. I spent months questioning my judgment, my intelligence, my ability to assess situations accurately. The shame of having been fooled, despite my research, despite my caution, despite my cultural background, was overwhelming. I'd explained Thai face culture to other foreigners with confidence. I'd defended cultural financial obligations in online forums. I'd positioned myself as someone who understood what skeptical expats missed. Learning I'd been completely wrong about fundamental concepts I'd thought I'd mastered was devastating to my self-concept. The embarrassment of having to admit to friends that I'd been scammed using the culture I'd claimed to understand was excruciating. The exhaustion of having spent 13 months walking on eggshells trying to prevent face loss that wasn't even real was profound. But there's something else I learned that matters. I wasn't stupid. I was trusting. There's a difference. I came to Thailand with genuine respect for culture, genuine desire to learn, genuine willingness to adapt. Those are positive qualities. Busaba exploited them, but their existence isn't a flaw. The problem wasn't my cultural sensitivity. The problem was her manipulation of that sensitivity. The problem wasn't my research and trying to understand. The problem was that she deliberately provided false information while positioning herself as the only valid source. The problem wasn't my desire to be respectful. The problem was her weaponizing respect as a tool for exploitation. I needed to forgive myself for being the person I'd tried to be, culturally humble, willing to learn, open to correction. Those qualities made me vulnerable to this specific manipulation, but they're not qualities I should eliminate. The lesson wasn't to become cynical about culture. The lesson was to verify trust, to distinguish cultural education from cultural exploitation, to maintain healthy skepticism alongside respect. 18 months after ending the relationship, I'm still in Chiang Mai. I'm still interested in Thai culture. I have Thai friends who've taught me genuine traditions with patience and generosity. I attend cultural events, participate in Buddhist practices, continue learning the language. The difference now is that I verify information from multiple sources. I distinguish between individual preference and cultural requirement. I recognize when culture is invoked to justify requests versus when culture is being shared as education. I maintain financial boundaries while remaining culturally respectful. I've learned that real culture doesn't require you to bankrupt yourself. Real culture welcomes questions. Real culture has reciprocal obligations. Real culture can be verified across multiple legitimate sources. Real culture doesn't weaponize itself against those trying to learn it. I met someone new 8 months ago. Thai woman, similar educational background to Busaba, works in education. The difference is striking. When cultural concepts come up, she encourages me to verify with other sources. When gift-giving occasions arise, she suggests modest, appropriate gifts rather than expensive status displays. When I ask questions about traditions, she answers without emotional manipulation or accusations of disrespect. We split restaurant bills often. She's never once told me something would make her lose face. When I mentioned my previous relationship experience generally, she said she knew women who did what Busaba had done, and it embarrassed her because it made Thai women look manipulative. She said genuine face culture would have prevented Busaba from making the excessive requests she made because imposing excessively on a partner actually causes face loss for the person making the requests, not the person hesitating to fulfill them. The contrast taught me what healthy cultural exchange actually looks like. If you're in a relationship where Thai culture is being invoked constantly to justify expenses, where questioning cultural claims triggers accusations of disrespect, where you're isolated from alternative cultural information sources, where your partner is the sole authority on cultural requirements that keep getting more expensive, you're being culturally manipulated. You're not experiencing authentic Thai culture. You're experiencing exploitation dressed in cultural language. Verify everything. Talk to multiple Thai people. Consult cultural experts. Read academic sources. Trust consensus over individual claims. Set boundaries. Don't let shame about being culturally insensitive prevent you from protecting yourself from systematic extraction. Real respect for culture includes respecting yourself enough to verify that what you're being told is actually cultural rather than personal preference or outright invention. Thai culture is beautiful. Face culture is real and meaningful. The concept of maintaining social dignity, showing respect, navigating hierarchy gracefully, these are valuable social technologies that create smoother interpersonal dynamics. But they don't cost $41,000. They don't require luxury lifestyle maintenance. They don't justify systematic financial exploitation. They don't weaponize themselves against people genuinely trying to learn. When culture becomes a tool for manipulation rather than a framework for mutual understanding, it's not culture anymore. It's abuse. And recognizing that distinction, being willing to verify rather than blindly trust, maintaining respect for tradition while protecting yourself from exploitation, that's not cultural insensitivity. That's wisdom.